We're here today because we knew Gloria, we loved Gloria, we knew her children, and so we've come together to honor her life, to share in her memory, and to comfort her children and their families. Children, Dave, Jeff, we say hello on the live stream to those in Australia. Dee and Pete, Hazel and Delilah, Leslie, Eric, Zoe, Ari, and Evan, and the many cousins, nieces, and nephews, numerous friends, to Mitchell's children, Jackie and Jeff and Jenna, Amy and Mitch, David, Jordan and Allie, and her close friend who passed recently, Auntie Nancy Appel. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. Cantor Sarah will chant Psalm 121, linking Gloria's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God, a tradition and a connection which flowed strongly through Gloria. As the cantor chants in Hebrew, allow this to be a meditative moment. You may choose to close your eyes. You may choose to allow an image or a picture of Gloria to arise in your mind and make that the focus of your awareness. Psalm 121.
Shir lamalot esa enai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim
Jeff, if you'll come up and share some memories of your mother.
Thank you. First of all, we'd like to thank you all for coming, and those of you who are live streaming, thank you as well. as we say goodbye to our mom. She was 5 feet of concrete, tiny but mighty, in all she did and all she was. More powerful than a locomotive and just as driven. Leslie always said I got Mom's energy. But when I was back here last summer, Mom was the one showing the energy, still fighting for her independence, cracking jokes, and taking interest in all we were talking about. She inquired about my job, how I managed a cross-country drive to see her, and even giggled at the fact that I play music in a local church band led by a pastor with whom I used to be in a rock band touring. Mom absolutely adored her family, especially her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. It was such a treat to watch her interact with Zoe, Ari, and Evan. Her favorite show was watching the digital picture frame in her kitchen, showing photos and videos from Australia of Dee, Pete, Hazel, and Delilah, and loved that she had breakfast with her great-granddaughters every morning. Her eyes would light up and she would tell me, Jeff, look at this photo, Jeff, look at this one, look at this one, and on and on and on. That's another thing about Mom. For someone who was as rigid as a redwood on many things, the way she opened her heart and her home to Dee and baby Hazel, and welcomed Dee, Pete, Hazel, and Delilah into our family, showed Mom's exceptional grace. She could have flown around the room backwards when I told her that I have a daughter and had cancer again. But she took both in stride and embraced these new family members as if they were with her from their birth. One morning we were Leah and Isabel nice enough to them and the others, and was apologizing to me about not always feeling her best, especially at that time when she had pneumonia. And she wanted me to let them know how much she appreciated all they have done for her. Having seen Maria, Isabella, Alicia, Sonia, and Luce in action, I'm humbled. It's one thing to be a caregiver for your own, as I've personally experienced, but to do this for strangers is one of the greatest mitzvahs possible. I salute these women as well as nurses Bob and Courtney from hospice for the great care they gave Mom. To Mom's relatives and friends who have been calling regularly, visiting, and generally being there for her, especially at the end, thank you too. Although her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren were her oxygen, you all have been the reason she has lived so long. For as much as she gave of herself to you, you have all reciprocated in the best ways possible. Speaking of relatives and friends, there are 2 families I need to acknowledge. The Appels and the Rudolphs. We were one family under 3 roofs. All our parents were auntie and uncle, not Mr. and Mrs. To be honest, as a kid, I truly thought we were related. Their kids were my bonus brothers and sisters. We just lost Auntie Nancy, and it wasn't long ago we said goodbye to Auntie Sylvia too. I was so grateful to have had quality time with our auntie last summer when visiting Mom, and to be reunited with my bonus brothers and sisters. Dave, you've also inherited Mom's dogged determination, work ethic, moral center, and drive. I witnessed how you managed to make your nightly call to Mom, regardless of how you were feeling, even from the hospital, and regardless of how she was acting when she started to get disoriented, the way you handled when she was confused, with logic and love, and guided her back was so beautiful. During my visit last year, and again this week, I witnessed a side of Leslie that has me standing in awe. She's been juggling caring for Mom, managing Mom's caregivers and affairs, caring for her own family, which to my surprise includes 2 cats, and still made time for Dave and me, generally being an absolute superstar every step of the way, even when things have been beyond stressful. Leslie, I have so much respect and admiration for you as a wife, a mother, a daughter, and the incredible human that you have become. It's an honor and a privilege to be your brother. And before you say I'm not doing anything or I could do better, please know that even Stevie Wonder can see how phenomenal you've been with so much on your plate. Leslie, you are all of Mom's best qualities, 2.0 and on steroids. Drive and energy weren't the only things I inherited from Mom. My strong sense of faith and a desire to do good, not just be good, were directly from her. From Mom, I also inherited a love of music, theater, and art. She took me to Boston as a kid to see plays like Fiddler on the Roof. Although it wasn't a popular decision in the family at the time, I studied and forged a career in music because of those experiences. Mom was dedicated to her faith and her temple. She kept kosher and ensured we went to Hebrew school, to temple on Saturdays, and worked hard to have a Jewish home. I graduated Hebrew high school and was bar mitzvahed at the wall because of her encouragement. My guess is that one of her greatest accomplishments, other than raising her family, was getting bat mitzvahed at 79. She was 10 feet tall when called to the Torah, with little Zoe by her side. And there was extra pride and joy for her when I surprised her by flying in to attend. Mom also had a sense of humor, which I didn't really get to enjoy enough. Her jokes during my visit last summer were adorable. She also thought it was ironic that I'm in a band whose greatest hit was a song called Gloria. She often asks if I'm still playing her song. She kept a sense of humor all the way to the end, making a face when somebody said she looked beautiful right after Leslie fixed her hair. And when she was unable to talk on Tuesday, she still managed to give me the most beautiful smile one more time right after Rabbi Michael spoke. While Luce, Sonia, and I were by Mom's side as her breathing slowed, she appeared to have exhaled one last time. After 2 minutes of silence, I texted Leslie to let her and Dave know. 2 seconds after I hit send, I had to text back to let them know she was breathing again. As if Mom was trying to say, gotcha, one last time. Even in our saddest moment, we couldn't help but laugh, thanks to Mom. A very dear friend of mine is an accountant who has many business owners as clients, and when he talks to them about an exit strategy, they all start their responses with, if I die. Well, we know it's not if, it's when. But I've learned that it's also how. How doesn't necessarily mean the cause. To me, how means how one faces death. And how one faces death is how one lives life. How one lives prepares one for the inevitable. Mom lived her life like Frank Sinatra, her way. Sure, things didn't go as smoothly as planned all the time, but through sheer force of will, she would push forward, not just for herself, but for all of us. Last summer, even with pneumonia, Mom was still trying to do for others, like when she insisted on signing Eric's birthday card instead of having Leslie help her. Seeing her smile as she sat across from me while eating her lunch, just the two of us for the first time in many years, I was smitten. She asked why was I smiling. I said, Mom, after all you've been dealing with, I can't help but smile because you're smiling. She responded with, I'm happy you're here. That's why I'm smiling. It was all I could do to hold back the tears, but I did. Tuesday's smile was even brighter in my eyes because it was her last. Today, we celebrate Gloria's life rather than mourning her passing because that's how she would want it. Through our sadness, knowing she's here in spirit will hopefully help everyone here and those watching online to feel a bit better. Seeing all of us come together to celebrate her life will be a great source of joy and honor as she goes to join her parents, brothers, and most recently, our auntie, with Hashem. To honor her, please do these three things for Gloria. Say a prayer for her family that we may find the strength to carry on in good health, with faith intact, and supportive of each other. Pray that the tears of sorrow will soon turn into tears of sweetness as we recall with love our time with her. Keep an eye on us so that if any of us stumbles, as our friends, our relatives, our neighbors, you'll be there to catch us before we fall. Talk to us about Gloria. Share stories, inspirations, and experiences you've had with her, not just today after the service, but going forward. Because that's the only way people truly die, is when we forget about them, or ignore or don't acknowledge their existence. We may cry when you share a story, but not all tears are sad. And through those tears, we'll appreciate that Gloria, our mom, left a lasting impression on others, not just us. This is especially important for her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. I'm pointing up because I think there's a camera somewhere that's her great-grandchildren, because they haven't had as much time as we've had with her. So they need to know how truly wonderful their ahaha has been. So with gratitude for your patience and sincere appreciation for being able to speak today, I'll close by paraphrasing from the Dire Straits song, Sultans of Swing. And then the man stepped right up to the microphone and said at last, just as the time bell rings, "Good night, Mom. It's time to go home. Another angel gets her wings. Another angel gets her wings. I love you, Mom. Shalom till we meet again. Baruch Hashem."
Mine probably isn't as good as that, but I'll start with a poem. It's by Edgar Albert Guests. It was my grandmother's favorite poem. This is just an excerpt. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he wouldn't be one to say so till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face. If he worried, he hid it. And he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Ahaha, Gloria, Auntie Gloria, Mom, or Mommy, however you knew her. I think we can all agree that her favorite poem is about her and all the struggles she overcame in her life. One of my favorite things about Ahaha was that no matter how many times she got knocked down, she got back up again. One of the most literal examples happened in 2016 when my siblings and I were staying over at her house. She ended up bumping her head, and Papa Mitchell told her to lie down. So somehow they compromised, and she sat in her favorite chair. I think a minute or two later, she was back up fixing her blinds in the room. Not only was Ahaha resilient, but she always had a smile on her face. I always thought it was amazing that she could make friends everywhere that she went. I sat next to her on the plane ride for a vacation, and somehow she ended up making friends with the lady sitting in front of us. When my brother and I were practicing for our bar mitzvah a couple of years ago, we would call her multiple times a week, asking her if she wanted to hear it. Her answer, of course, was always the same: sure. It didn't matter what kind of day she was having. She was always happy to hear from us, even if we did mess up a little. I admired her patience because, let's be honest, not a lot of people have that. I'd call her every day to say hi and see how she was doing. It didn't matter how many times a week I called, she was always cheerful and happy to hear from me. She She also came to see us every Tuesday when I was little, and so now for me, Tuesday will always be a haha day. Her patience, kindness, and love is what I'll miss about her the most. I have so many stories that I can tell you about that just show exactly who she was, especially involving her sayings and her quirks. I always remember when she got a question right on Jeopardy, when we played together on the iPad, she would turn to me and say, "Stick with me, kid." We didn't get to make it on Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune like we talked about. In the last few months, when she was placed in hospice care, she kept saying, "I don't want this to be your last memories of me." I think we all know that there are an infinite amount of good memories, and that is what we'll all remember about Ahaha.
As you all know, Ahaha loved her poems, so to start, I'm going to read one of her other favorite poems. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Life's success is not defined by how much one was spared from hardship, or in other words, by how lucky one was. Success is instead characterized by how well one handles challenging circumstances. Remaining happy amongst life's highs and lows is a mark of a strong person. By these measures, my grandmother was the strongest, most successful person I know. Despite her challenges in life, she managed to rise above them, allowing herself not only to live, but thrive. She will always be a role model to so many of us for how we can conduct ourselves. She was the best mother to her 3 children, the best grandmother to all her grandchildren, and the best great-grandmother to her 2 great-granddaughters. She made lifelong friends wherever she went, including all our beloved aunties. She was all about her walks and tennis games, which she did religiously up until 3 years ago. An average day with Ahaha was not average at all. It would begin with her stretches, followed by a quick breakfast and her 3-mile walk by the beach, usually with Auntie Nancy. She would then play tennis until lunchtime, at which point she would always go out to eat with a friend. After this, she would go to her much-loved Beauty Essex Museum, and finally attend Mincha before going home. This is what she would call a 5-star day. Besides always wanting to have something to do, she was also the most determined person I've met. A few months ago, when Ahaha had been bedridden for weeks, she was taking an afternoon nap. All of a sudden, she woke up and exclaimed, "All right, enough being lazy. I've got to get up and run some errands." That was the kind of person she was, always thinking and doing. The modern version of the ancient Mishaberach prayer says, "May you have the courage to make your life a blessing." By this metric, Ahaha was the most courageous person I've ever met. She overcame so much to make her life a gift. It was a blessing to everyone she knew, and even to those she didn't. Her courage, success, humor, wisdom, and love will continue to live on in all of us. Ani ohev otach, Ahaha. Shalom aleichem.
And Zoe, yeah. And you're sharing some of your mother's words?
So when I was younger, on the rare occasions that my parents would go out and take a night to themselves, sometimes my grandma would be the one babysitting. And on these nights, I knew that before I could go to sleep, I would get a lengthy lecture about how much my mom did for me and how I needed to help her out. And although this wisdom might have been lost on 9-year-old me, I'm 19 now and I understand a little bit better. And so therefore, when my mom told me that she didn't think she would be in a state to deliver the eulogy she had written, volunteering to do it in her place was a no-brainer. I hope I can do her words justice, and I hope that my grandmother will be proud of the part that she played in my decision. Having Gloria Sax as a mother was the greatest privilege and most beautiful gift. My mother embodied every admirable quality one could hope to possess. She was nurturing, patient, supportive, generous, intelligent, perceptive, and elegant. She radiated warmth and grace, her beauty shining brilliantly from within. Gloria was born in Boston in 1933 and grew up in Everett with older brother Paul and younger brother Philip. She graduated from Everett High School in 1950, where she quickly became enamored with the drama club. Gloria didn't just just participate in the plays, she became the star, earning the nickname Little Blonde Bombshell for her beauty, talent, and captivating charm. Her passion for acting continued at Emerson College, where she studied drama, and she was married in 1955. I've always loved that my earliest memories are of being with her. No matter what we were doing, she always made it fun. She truly was a force of nature. Whether it was something as simple as a car ride, having lunch with friends, shopping, or cooking together, our conversations were always lively and filled with laughter, and quite often with a lesson. She taught me so much over the years. She had her favorite mantras: don't sweat the small stuff, in the overall scheme of life, this is just a drop in the bucket, and the sagest of all, which I heard on more than one occasion after a bad haircut: hair grows. She always said to put a smile on your face no matter what you're feeling inside. She embraced this so wholeheartedly that it eventually became a running joke in our family. She would walk down the aisles of Stop and Shop smiling at passerby, and strangers would say hello. I'd ask her who they were, and she'd say she didn't know them, and I guess they're just responding to my silly grin. Gloria always looked on the bright side despite the many hardships she endured over the course of her life. She tried to teach us to find a bit of humor in a sad situation. Gloria lost her mom at the very young age of 15, a loss she often said profoundly shaped her into the kind, loving woman who always put others ahead of herself. Gloria was a consummate caregiver for her parents, her in-laws, her aunt and uncle, and of course for my 2 brothers and me. She never complained about all her responsibilities, she just took on more. Despite what she may have had going on personally, she would also be chairing a committee at the temple, Hadassah, or another charity, and a few times she tried her hand at various jobs. She sold salad dressing with my Auntie Nancy, worked briefly for an esthetician, gave bus tours of Marblehead in Boston, taught Sunday school at our temple, and even made marketing calls for a recycling business. Whatever she took on, she approached it with enthusiasm and determination. My mother was a doer. She was forever doing things for me. She helped me with everything: projects, problems, cooking, shopping, decorating, and her favorite by far, babysitting for Zoe, Ari, and Evan. In 1999, when I wasn't getting the job done of finding the right partner, she took matters into her own hands and found Harry for me. Of course, that shaped her own life as well, bringing her the joy of 3 loving grandchildren and her favorite son-in-law. Gloria experienced many challenges throughout her life, including the difficult breakup with my father. But to quote one of her favorite songs, she picked herself up, dusted herself off, and started all over again. Thankfully she did, because as she would often say, fate weaves its web in mysterious ways. That path led her to Mitchell Coleman's, the man she spent 25 wonderful years with. They shared many common interests and a deep love for travel, embarking on incredible journeys around the world. They loved to visit museums, and especially shared a passion for the Peabody Essex Museum. They enjoyed going to the BSO and Boston Pops, and loved their weekly movie dates. With Mitchell came his wonderful daughters and their husbands, Jackie and Jeff and Amy and Mitch, and their children, Jenna, David, Jordan, and Allie. Gloria and Mitchell enjoyed doing the grandparent shuffle, frequently making their rounds between Swampscott and New York. My mother's wonderful sense of humor earned her the nickname Ahaha instead of Grandma. She always debated what she would be called when she became a grandmother, but her grandchild Zoe decided that for her. Since my mom was always laughing at everything Zoe said, the sound of her laughter became her name. I think the person that she laughed most with was her sister by choice, Nancy Appel. The 2 of them could just look at each other and get hysterical. Gloria's sense of humor remained sharp until the very end. In her final days, when her hospice nurse said, "Gloria, I'm going to listen to your heart now," she paused, and without missing a beat, as the nurse placed the stethoscope on her chest, she joked, "Is it still there?" She managed to make me laugh every single day I was with her, right up until she passed. She managed to convey she really cared about you because she did. Her family meant everything to her. She grew up having close relationships with her brothers Paul and Philip and with her cousins. When they all had children, she maintained special bonds with her nieces, nephews, and her cousins' children. She frequently spoke with her niece Shari and her nephew Stephen. Shari called her every day since she was on hospice, and their conversations brought her much joy. Gloria forged lifelong relationships from as far back as elementary school, and at 18, she met Nancy Appel, the friend who became her sister. Soon after, she met her other sister, Sylvia Rudolph. Together, the 3 women had 9 children. My parents followed the Appels to Swampscott and bought the house right across the street. We all shared countless special times together, and thanks to the deep bond between these 3 women, My brothers and I grew up with 6 extra cousins. Gloria made friends everywhere she went. At the temple, sisterhood, Hadassah, during her travels across the country and around the world, or at the Peabody Essex Museum with her fellow docents and museum staff. Over the years, she added close friends to her inner circle from near and far. Auntie Barbara Barden in the 60s, Herlene Clough from Baltimore in the 70s, and Bernadette from Belgium in the 80s. When she chose to become a bat mitzvah at the ripe young age of 79, she did so alongside a wonderful group of women from Shirat Hayam, who became known as her Schwesters, sisters in Yiddish. The deep bond they shared was something my mother cherished dearly. My friends adored her, and she adored them. She called Stacy her other daughter, and they bonded over their shared love of scarves, which they often traded with one another. When she went into the bank, she made friends with the tellers and often had lunch with the bank manager at Salem 5. When we returned something to a store, she made friends with the sales clerk. People reacted to her warmth, kindness, and wit. All my life, whenever I told people who my mom was, they would rave about how wonderful she was. I would always reply, I know, I'm so lucky. She found beauty in every season and always took the time to appreciate her surroundings. We often received calls from her, urging us to look out the window at a particularly stunning sunset. But I think the ocean captivated her the most. She loved living in Swampscott, where she could see the water. Gloria walked along the beach on Lynshore Drive nearly every day, and my kids lovingly referred to that stretch of beach as a Haas Ocean. Gloria was a strong and one-of-a-kind woman with boundless energy. She packed her days to the fullest, saying she'd rest when she was gone. Her passion for learning was endless. She was always immersed in a book she couldn't wait to recommend, with another lined up and ready to go. She took art history classes at the MFA. She was always studying to learn about a new exhibit at the Peabody Essex Museum, which was her second home. She volunteered there for over 45 years, and we used to joke that one day they would erect a figurehead of her in East India Marine Hall. She gave tours, took classes, and met with friends. Whenever there was a special group of tourists or VIPs, she was the go-to docent. Though she meticulously prepared for each group and often felt nervous beforehand, her efforts always paid off. Afterward, she would proudly share how the group had applauded at the end of her presentation, with many people approaching her to express how meaningful her tour had been. One of her proudest achievements was her work on the Bhutan exhibition, where she helped to secure corporate sponsors. Her efforts were highly recognized, and at the exhibit opening, she had the honor of meeting the Queen of Bhutan. My mother had a deep love for fashion and an unmistakable sense of style from a young age. She never followed trends, but instead embraced her individuality. In the mid-1950s, she wore an ice blue wedding dress, an unconventional choice for the time. Her exquisite taste was further recognized when the Peabody Essex Museum accepted her stunning going-away honeymoon outfit into its collection. She was always impeccably dressed and elegant, never leaving the house without her lipstick and encouraging me to do the same. When my mother committed to something, she pursued it wholeheartedly until it became a part of her life. She began running when she was 35, lacing up her kid sneakers, tying a scarf around her head, and hitting the nearby track with her running buddy Nancy. Her passion for running spanned 30 years before evolving into daily walks. In the 1970s, she discovered tennis. She competed on a doubles team and won several tournaments. Her opponents nicknamed her the backboard because she returned nearly every shot hit her way. Even well into her 80s, she remained active, taking exercise classes, tap dancing, and trying yoga. She embraced each activity with enthusiasm and determination. Small but mighty was her signature phrase, and it perfectly captured her essence, both physically and mentally. Her determination was unwavering right up until her final days. Even as her condition worsened to the point where she could no longer speak audibly, her strength remained. I once told her she had spent her entire life being selfless, and it was okay to be selfish now and let go. She looked at me and with striking clarity declared, "Don't count me out." Gloria's greatest joy was spending time with Zoe, Ari, and Evan, who absolutely adored her. She loved them deeply and was immensely proud of them. These last few years, the kids visited her nearly every weekend and any other chance they had, a genuine reflection of their unwavering love and devotion. In the final months as her health declined, Gloria found comfort in her phone calls from Zoe, who shared stories about our busy school life at BU. Ari and Evan would sit by her bedside, holding her hands for hours on end and putting a smile on her face. I must mention one of the greatest blessings of her life, her granddaughter Dee. Dee came into our lives just before COVID, and from that moment on, she brought immense joy to my mother's world. Getting to know Dee, her partner Pete, and their daughters Hazel and Delilah was an incredibly joyful and meaningful experience. One of the most treasured gifts Dee gave her was a digital frame filled with family photos. Seeing those cherished moments scroll by brought my mother endless joy in her final months. Finally, I want to express my deepest gratitude to my mother's compassionate caregivers, Isabel, Maria, Sonia, Lucy, Luce, Piao, and Alicia. They cared for her with such genuine love and kindness as if she were their own family. I am forever grateful for their unwavering support and dedication. I hope you leave here today with a deep appreciation for the incredible person my mom was. I also ask that whenever you see something beautiful in nature, you take a moment to think of her, keeping her spirit and ideals alive. Her optimism, empathy, compassion, generosity, and insight were qualities I deeply admired and always aspired to emulate. I believe everyone here would agree that knowing Gloria Sax was a privilege, and no one was more fortunate than I. Her inner light shone brightly, touching each of us in her own special way and making our world a better place. May her legacy of kindness, positivity, empathy, patience, strength, and love continue to inspire and live on in us all.
Gloria was a regular at the Friday night Shabbat services, which, since I've arrived at Shirat Hayam, they've been small, intimate affairs, 10 to 15 of us. After about a year, she said, "You know, Rabbi, could I schedule a time to meet with you and talk about the Friday night service?" "Of course, Gloria. Why don't you come in next Wednesday at 3 o'clock? When I opened my door to let Gloria in, there were 6 people in the lobby, and I was ambushed. And out of that meeting came one of the more successful services that we had called the Holy Happy Hour, where we, in the first night, took, instead of 10 or 15 people, there were 95, thanks to the input of Gloria and the people in the third to last row. It's no wonder that she operated this way. She asked her daughter to share through me a poem by Henry David Thoreau called "To Live Deliberately," which explains exactly why she ambushed me. Why should we live in such a hurry and waste of life? We are determined to be starved before we are hungry. I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life. I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived. I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear, nor do I wish to practice resignation unless it is quite necessary. While she asked us to quote others' words, that's the third poem shared today, I want to share with you Gloria's words. Her motto, Chazak va'amatz, be strong and of good courage. She shared advice. When you meet good people, always stay with them. Treat them well, especially your hairdresser. Wisdom. Happiness is bound up with our children's happiness. Gratitude. My daughter is the best. Everyone should have a daughter like mine, but you can't have her. You'll have to find your own. More gratitude. I got lucky to stay in my home. About President Trump. I read his books. I wanted to hear what he had to say. I wasn't impressed. You heard earlier her greatest achievement was fixing up her daughter-in-law. You can hear the full story some other time. She was most proud of, I think most proud of being Jewish. It was a huge part of her identity. She attended Camp Young Judea as a child. She then worked as a counselor at Camp Pembroke. She was active in Junior Hadassah, and then as an adult, she was active in Hadassah, in the synagogue. You've heard about that, so much of that. She practiced as a Friday night regular, was very close with Becky Shepherd, and really appreciated everything that Becky did to make services and life happen here at the synagogue. She really loved Cantor Emil and Ellen Garfield, who led the Friday night services previously. She started coming to the Daily Minyan when her brother died in 2000. As you've heard earlier, she was incredibly proud to have earned her bat mitzvah at age 79. What wasn't mentioned is that after that, she actually read Torah on Yom Kippur, not in front of the Shabbat crowd like this size, but in front of the 1,000 people who would have been here for Yom Kippur. She was proud of the community work that she did, volunteering at the temple, sisterhood, Hadassah. She was a strong Zionist, was proud that she was a Zionist, proud of other people who were Zionists, and said, I'm probably most proud of my contributions to the organizations of which I was a part. She was proud of her independence. She wanted to be self-sufficient and not make other people worry. She liked to play tennis, to go bowling, to spend time at the temple, and be a docent at the PBD Essex. You've heard about the time with her family, with Mitchell, because most of all, that's what she cherished most. Her friends, her family, her grandkids, who were sensitive, brilliant, hardworking, and disciplined, who appreciated her firmness and her principles, who looked forward to Tuesdays with Ahaha, who learned from her not to buy popcorn at the movies, but rather microwave your own at home. Interestingly enough, we'll take a poll later, her choice of popcorn involved no salt and no butter. And I'm sure her grandchildren love that flavor the best. Just know that all of you, you'll miss her laugh, her smile, her positivity, her dynamism, and merely her presence. Gloria, you will be missed, but you will never be forgotten. Please rise for the El Moleh Rachamim prayer.
El Maleh Rachamim, Shochem Bameromim, Hamzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanafei Bema'alot kedoshim utorim kezohar arakia mashirim et nishmat Gloria Rachel bat Chaim Meir HaKohen v'Sara Miriam shehalcha le'olama Began Eden tehei menuchata Ana Ba'al Rachamim Hasireha B'Sefer Kenafecha Le'olamim Utzror Bitzror HaChaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen.
El Moleh Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, Grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Gloria Hayam, Meir, HaKohen, Vesera, Miriam, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. You can be seated. To Gloria's family, please, Almighty God of the living and the dead, send comfort to your children who grieve. Help them focus on the triumph and the joy in Gloria's life. Help them meet grief with courage. Fulfill the prayers that her son Jeff offered, and allow them to treasure what will always be theirs because Gloria has lived. Amen. The traditional Kaddish is not recited until the burial is complete, but as a musical, meditative moment, we take one phrase from that Kaddish and wanted to provide a closing opportunity for you to close your eyes and devote your thoughts and your awareness